Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, we're all dreaming of what this Sun season could possibly be as we count down the days toward training camp. What are our personal goals, aspirations, imaginations for what this season could be? Things we're cheering for, rooting for as we look toward training camp and beyond. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. Welcome into Locked On Suns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons and a staff writer at Awful Announcing. That over there is Ben Garcia, the executive producer of The Drive on Fox Sports 9:10 a.m. here in the Valley. Welcome in. Thank you for making us your first listen. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. We're here for you every single day. We are free everywhere, including YouTube. So just hit that button, get a new episode in your feed Monday through Friday, starting next week. Become an everydayer. Get locked onto the Suns right here every day. Today, we're going through 3 things we each want out of this season. We're going to get a little personal, a little in our feelings, maybe just throw some things that we want to root for, frankly. And imagine what that all could look like. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers who bet $5 get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Ben, start us off here. What's the first thing that you want out of this Suns season? Something you really think would make it better, would make the team better? Take us wherever you want to go. Start us off here.
Yeah, so when I was deciphering through my few things that I wanted to see from the Suns this season, what, fun or want to see or the best outcomes, I think the easiest thing and something that would make a huge difference for the Phoenix Suns this year is those fourth quarter collapses. I need to see a Suns team that has 3 killers, and we've talked about this last show. I want to see Bradley Beal closing games. 3 killers on the offensive side of the ball, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, being able to chokehold other defenses. This needs to be a team that in the final 5 minutes of a game, up or down 5 points, cannot be able to be stopped because Kevin Durant is so lethal from the mid-range, because Devin Booker is so lethal from the mid-range, and Bradley Beal, that for some reason people like to say is washed, still has one of the quickest first steps in the NBA, driving to the basket. That is something that was a huge proponent from the Phoenix Suns last season that was just asinine to deal with. So that right there is my number one thing that I want to see from the Suns this year. Not a championship, not anything that could be seen as unattainable at times. Just fix the fourth quarter offense. That's where losses turn into wins and wins turn into losses.
I love it. Who do you think had the best net rating in the fourth quarter last year? If you had to guess, the Suns, as we know, were dead last, minus 11.6. No one else. They were doubly as bad as any other team. The Miami Heat were 29th with a minus 5.5. That's how ugly that it was. And you get even closer to average, you're winning 2, 3, 4 more games, I would think. But just out of trivia, for nothing else, who do you think had the best net rating in the fourth quarter in the NBA last year?
I'm going to say it's Grayson Allen.
No. I'm talking about another team.
Oh, another team. I thought you were saying like a singular player.
Full NBA, who had the best net rating in the NBA?
Boston Celtics.
You got it. And the reason I just threw the question out there as a starting point is the best teams are all at the top of the list. All of the conference finalist teams are all in the top 10. It's just a non-negotiable when you're talking about who dominates in the NBA. Boston, Minnesota, Denver, that's the top 3. Dallas is 9th. They obviously kind of came on late. Even the Pacers, who we didn't even expect to be there by the end of this whole thing, are 5th. So you cannot be a good team. You cannot win anything unless you take care of business. And again, like maybe that's just a bugaboo for the Suns again this year, but even being neutral, even just being net neutral, 0 in the total outscored versus outscoring your opponent, that's still going to make them such a better team. But obviously, I think we both want more than average for them.
Yeah, when you're going through all the things that the Phoenix Suns can fix this year, and you had mentioned just briefly, are they going to be able to fix the fourth quarter thing? I believe that's non-negotiable. I believe the Phoenix Suns will absolutely be one of the better teams in the NBA when it comes to fourth quarter efficiency, net rating, or whatever you want it to be, because I think that's why you bring in Coach Bud. It was way too much of a stagnant offense last year. It was way too much hero ball. And it seemed like Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, whether you want to say injuries or blame it on something else, just did not know who they were going to go to in the fourth quarter. That was like something, again, that was so asinine for this team, which it was just hero ball. It was, okay, Devin Booker against the Pelicans is cooking. Let's just give it to him and hopefully we win the game. That is stagnant basketball. It doesn't work, and it frustrates players like Kevin Durant who have to sit in the corner and wait for it to be his time to shine. So that's something that I think is going to get fixed this year, and I believe it's going to add at least 5 or 6 wins to this team where I'm not even hoping. I know it's going to happen, and it's something I want for it to happen. What about you?
5 or 6 wins, I'm eager to hear when we do some predictions where you have them win total wise. Because if they're getting 6 more off just that,
5,
that's
they
pretty
should.
incredible.
I mean, they should.
55,
How many times last
55
year?
wins.
How many wins they have? They have 49
49.
last year, right?
49
50,
last year.
I couldn't remember. 55 wins is not. That's not something that is not attainable for the Suns team.
No,
that
it's attainable.
That is not attainable for the Suns team.
Yeah.
It's absolutely attainable.
So we'll circle back to some of the big three stuff. I hear you. I think that, to me, a lot of it, the fourth quarter, was even more simple than that. I don't even know if the offense, obviously they were throwing the ball all over the gym and there were some times where it got stuck. That didn't feel super unique to the fourth quarter to me personally. I just think that they got very out of sorts. The spirit kind of went away and they just didn't play with the high IQ in those moments. And I think they just sort of fell apart. And when they had to execute, that's where when it wasn't just loose, right? But I'm going to go big picture on my first one. A championship. That's what I want to see from this season. I want to see a championship. And I kind of think the timing is right here as well. You know, I just look at, obviously, the pressure and the moves that could be coming if they don't get a title are going to be the number one bulletin board material for this team to want to get that job done, even more than their own internal fire that we know they all have. But as a fan and observer of this team, I think that this season will feel better if they're able to even make a deep push. Title's a very hard thing to do because we do have a little bit more history with this group. The past few years have just been so much about change, right? But Kevin Durant's tenure after this season, by the time we get to the playoffs in April, will be basically as long as Chris Paul's was. As crazy as that sounds to say. For the first time since 2021, when they were running it back after the finals team, the majority of the rotation has returned. And I personally think this is the deepest, most complete team of Devin Booker's career. That also helps get you there and puts pressure on you to get there because you have the talent. And you mentioned Mike Budenholzer. I don't know if we've given enough credit to the fact that Mike Budenholzer is, at the time of being hired this summer, far and away the most accomplished coach ever to be hired by the Suns. The Suns have had some great coaches, Cotton Fitzsimmons, Paul Westphal. They've had guys early on in their coaching careers like Scott Skiles and Danny Ainge and Alvin Gentry who ended up having some, at memorable moments and deep runs.
2 Western Conference Finals appearances under Alvin Gentry.
For sure. But when Bud was hired, I don't think you can put anybody's resume up to his. So I just add all of that up, and it feels like I can make a case for why it will be all the more enjoyable. We know the pressure's there, but as an observer, as a fan, the experience of watching this team run it back in a real way, have the talent, have the lumps that they've taken, and finally get over that hump, I just think it'll be really satisfying in a way that, frankly, you could convince me even 2021 or, if they got lightning in a bottle when KD first got here and won it in 2023 or something, it may not have been. I do think the time we've spent with this group goes a long way and everything's kind of stacked up to, hey, you got to do something pretty big this year.
I mean, I would agree with you. Clearly, a championship is one of those things, and I can't wait to get into the what makes the Suns the most fun this season because you're going to hate my answer. But I just think if you're going to win a championship, I'm looking for the things that would make it more attainable, and that's the Tyus Jones adding, and that's the Mike Budenholzer adding, and it's kind of funny because every year under the Matt Ishbia thing, under Matt Ishbia's ownership, I guess I should say, the Phoenix Suns each year had a huge splash signing or a splash trade. Kevin Durant, then it was Bradley Beal, and this year there wasn't anything. And fans who didn't understand how the salary cap worked were kind of like, where is this big splash signing? Where's this big splash trade? It was Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer was the big splash move for the Phoenix Suns. They kicked Frank Vogel, said, don't let the door hit you on the bleep on the way out, brought in Mike Budenholzer, a guy who's won a championship before, and a guy that got so little credit for winning a championship with the Bucks. And then the Tyus Jones thing came a little bit sooner, or I'm sorry, came a little bit later. But Mike Budenholzer is going to be the straw that stirs the drink. He's going to be the guy that is expected to make all of this work. I feel like the Suns and the Suns fan base has not treated it as such. There is a new person on this Suns quote unquote roster. He's just not playing. It's Mike Budenholzer. So I absolutely believe it with Mike Budenholzer. I think he was a slam dunk hire. And I do believe it is severely underplayed by not only the media, but as the fan base alike too.
Basically, my case is here. The disappointment of last season, I think, is coloring the fact that the difference between a disappointing season and an overachieving season is never as significant as we say. And this offseason, I think, checked almost every box that you would want outside of, we know there might be one more wing or forward trade to be made. But when you just kind of stack up the building, the pressure, the hopefully ability to kind of coalesce after the disappointment of last year, it's not hard for me, even if I zoom out of obviously wanting it to happen, like I'm saying, to kind of make the case for, hey, this is the point in time where teams usually have kind of that make or break season. And obviously we want to see it be a make season versus a break season. But let's jump to thing number 2. We'll just call it a very fancy title right there. Thing number 2 from each of us that we want to see this upcoming season. Coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk a ton about FanDuel for years. We love it. It is, of course, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, but we have something a little bit different going on with them right now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Of course, there's football going on constantly. Maybe you want to ride the high of ASU's hot start and put a little money on them for next week or something. I'm looking at, we already know what the Phoenix Suns regular season win total over-under is. I think it's a little bit low at 47.5. Ben has them winning 73 games or something like that. It sounds like the Lakers, though, I think, hey, why not go just under on LA and enjoy that taste a little bit more when they fail to live up to expectations? That sounds like a fun way to spend your NBA season, right? But whatever you throw $5 down on, you get that 3 weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's number one sportsbook. Alrighty, Ben, we're keeping it rolling here. I will start us off here on our second dream for the Phoenix Suns season. And mine is piggybacking off of your first one. And it is just plain and simple, the big 3 working together. Okay? I want Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal to play off of each other, to fit better, to be better than the sum of their parts, more than they ever were last year. Now, what always trips me up about even making that case or saying that I want to see it so badly is that many numbers will tell you that they were pretty damn good together anyway. Their offensive rating with all 3 of them on the court, 123.3. They scored 123, just over points per 100 possessions when all of them shared the court last year. That is better than Boston's big 3. That is better than Kyrie and Luka on the court for Dallas. It's better than just about any combination of other teams' best players besides Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, who are basically playing a different sport when they're out there. But we know, we watch this thing, right? They couldn't find balanced lineups. They couldn't figure out turnovers and pace and just sort of orchestrating the game. And the defense never really sorted itself out, no matter who was out there with them. So I think part of the big three working together is, yes, some of the late game stuff you talked about, leadership, like we talked about on Friday, but also they have to be part of the solution of some of those less sexy parts of the game that this team struggled with, right? Okay, Tyus Jones can help with that orchestration. Maybe there's some defensive help that they can get from a Ryan Dunn or a better backup center or another full year of Royce O'Neal or whatever you want to say. But the big three need to do that too. They need to be part of the pace and turnover stuff. They need to be leaders. So fitting together is not just the numbers, even though the numbers would tell you it's great. And they have to just rise the tide of this team if they're going to get where they want to go. They're too top heavy for that not to be the case.
You know, I hate to be the damper of a good mood here on this episode, but let me ask you this. What is your belief that that's going to happen? That all three of these guys are going to mesh enough to carry this team? Because it's not a deep team. Now, I think depth is largely overrated. I think if you have 6, 7 guys, you can win a championship. Yeah. But is there a part of you that thinks maybe these three just don't work well enough together? We know Devin Booker and Kevin Durant do. Does Bradley Beal?
I guess the number as far as the offense goes and the strength of the offense last year overall, which, yes, was boosted in large part by having shooter like Grayson Allen. It fell off a cliff when Eubanks was out there versus Nurkic. It's not just attributable to the big three, but that tells me the fit is there. I feel like fit is something we normally talk about when it comes to offense. So fully in agreement with you that the fourth quarter needs to be a place where that lifts up. I just think last year was frankly an aberration. There's no way they are as bad in the fourth quarter last year. If they did, we should like hang a banner for it because it would be so much of an anomaly in the history of basketball that a team could be that ugly in the fourth quarter 2 straight seasons. So outside of that, which I think will just get better from chemistry developing and from the addition of vets across the court, but also Tyus Jones, I think the other stuff is honestly less about fit, which is kind of what I was getting at with the fourth quarter as well, frankly, is it's stuff like playing hard, spirit, feeling confident, feeling like you have a voice, the things that come with not only another year of time together, veterans around you rather than, flameouts in the league who didn't get picked up this year, which was a lot of their rotation last year, and a new coach who's better than the last coach. I do think that they already fit pretty decently last year, and I do see a path for them to go forward from there. Yeah, I don't have qualms about it at all. It's a matter of how high. I'm not saying they're going to win the title because it just snaps, but I think it has to be better than last year, and it already was at a better starting point than we give it credit for.
Is it as simple as knowing the roles? Is it as simple as someone taking a backseat to Devin Booker or to Kevin Durant? I don't know who the best player on this team is going to be. I'm of the belief that it's going to be very tough for Devin Booker to be the best player on a championship team. History says outside of Steph Curry, it's usually a wing or a bigger guy or someone of the Kevin Durant stature. Is it just as simple as if they clearly know the roles? Devin Booker is obviously the leader, but Dwayne Wade was the leader of the Heatles. Is it Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, a very distant Bradley Beal, or can it be a 1A, 1B, and then Bradley Beal still 3?
Yeah, I guess I look at it less as like the hierarchy in that way and more of the roles of what they're actually doing on the court. And again, that's where I kind of actually feel some optimism about another year of progress as a trio, as a team top to bottom, that those will click into place even better. Bradley Beal did take a back seat last year, very clearly. He lowered his usage rate. He took more threes. He handled the ball as a point guard more. He defended way different types of players than he ever had in his life. And I think where you see Bud come in is that's exactly what he did when he got to Milwaukee. He paired Middleton, Giannis, and Drew Holiday in very simplistic offensive actions that just maximize where those guys liked to get the ball and did it with more ball movement and pace than they had before. It's not hard with great players, especially guys who have already proven they're going to buy in. So yeah, another year of that mindset really, really clicking in with a coach who brings it out of you better, yeah, I think that has to happen. But again, I think we're already seeing momentum toward it getting there.
That's interesting.
What's your
Okay.
next one?
Yeah, let me flip it over to mine, and it's really simple. Really, it is. It has nothing to do with the Phoenix Suns in terms of on-court value. I'm kind of speaking to the Suns fan here. The expectations last year were kind of insane, and I'm on that boat. I was absolutely on that boat. I was wrong, and I think it is important to admit when you're wrong, or to admit what's going on in the basketball world that maybe we had expectations for, but it didn't happen. And last year, it was championship or bust. Just look at the past. Big threes, or when you throw a bunch of guys together, they usually don't win championships in the first year. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, they didn't do it. It's hard to do. I believe what makes the most fun for the Phoenix Suns this year is having no expectations. Now, there is a floor where they need to make the playoffs, and there is a floor where they probably need to win the first round. But this championship or bust expectation, when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I was kind of insane. We were betting on Bradley Beal staying healthy. He never stayed healthy. We're betting on Kevin Durant to kind of lead the team a little better, and it didn't happen, although I wouldn't put a ton of this on Kevin Durant. We're betting on Frank Vogel being a defensive coordinator on a team that is clearly offensive driven. And now the Phoenix Suns have clearly corrected some of those things, right? They got a new offensive guy on an offensive team. They got what we think are better role players. But last year, they got like 9 guys who shot over 45% from three, because we just said all they need is 3-point guys that you can't leave open. That didn't work out. They had Yuta Watanabe, and I forgot who else it was that shot 50% from corner threes the year before. It didn't work out. The Phoenix Suns season can be so much better with no expectations. A championship or bust season is the worst kind of season.
Sure.
If you're a Buffalo Bills fan and you're expecting a championship, week in and week out, losing one game ruins your entire week. Now, when you're the Cardinals or when you're the Phoenix Suns and you win a couple of games, it's very similar to what we have here in the Diamondbacks. If you're expecting a championship, that's insanity. If you're expecting a really fun season and winning a couple of games and winning a couple of games straight, it makes it all the more fun. And also, winning a championship is so bleeping hard. There's a reason why the Phoenix Suns have never won one. A lot of it has to do with a little bit of luck. The Boston Celtics, you don't think they didn't benefit from Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets flaming out in the second round? They absolutely did. But that is just what championship or bust does to a brain. You want microwave success when in reality, everything tastes better when it comes out of the oven. And it just takes a little bit longer. What do you have to say to that? Am I crazy? Am I being doom and gloom guy? I just think that the expectations last year, including myself, are crazy.
You're encouraging that people have a little bit of light day to day so that it doesn't feel so heavy. And I think that's fair. I do think that the expectations, and I would even push it past last year. I mean, right? Because the previous season, the Suns had just acquired a Hall of Famer 2 months before the playoffs. The season before that, they won 64 games and were the runaway favorites to basically win the championship. So it has been high expectations ever since they lost Game 6 of the finals to the Milwaukee Bucks 3+ years ago now. And I think that you're kind of singing a similar tune to what I said at the beginning of why it sort of feels like this championship might be a little easier to savor for Suns fans than previous ones, because that heaviness isn't there. And I would tell you that Matt Ishbia, I think, will benefit from a season like that too. It's the first season where he hasn't been shoving and shoving and shoving for things to be better, and I think that patience just, I would imagine it trickles into the executive offices and the locker room and everything else. It's not just fans, right? So I think that's a great one. All right. I have a player that I want to look at in the next segment on something I want to see happen this Suns season. We'll get there and finish out with Ben's last one next. First, today's show brought to you by BetterHelp. Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we can lose that curiosity. We think, yeah, I am who I am. I don't need any more help, but maybe there's something you'd like to learn. Gardening, a new language, beating somebody in bowling or pickleball. I don't know. Therapy, though, can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back-to-school era can come at any age, at any time. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Said it before, I will say it again. It can be about learning positive coping skills, setting boundaries, empowering yourself, just being the best version of you, whatever that looks like. Again, BetterHelp, online, convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, on your terms. Fill out a brief questionnaire. To get started, you get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch at any time for no additional charge until you find the right person. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Ben, close us out here. What is your final dream for this Suns season?
Oh, man, my final dream, and you're not going to like this one, and a lot of Suns fans aren't going to like this one. Trading Kevin Durant. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to see you kind of look at me really quickly.
I was gonna shut the podcast down.
No, it does involve trading someone. The best for me, I want the Phoenix Suns to be whenever the All-Star break is, they're top 4 in the Western Conference. And then that gives them the chance to have the ammunition to look around the league. And I'm going to specifically point out a singular player. Look around the league at a Brooklyn Nets team that looks to be not necessarily going to be a contender this year if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan. Trading Grayson Allen, a guy that is too much redundancy in an offense where I love Grayson Allen. Seriously, no one likes Grayson Allen more than I do. Check the receipts. I was the one that was happy when he was coming here in return for DeAndre Ayton. But at this point, his services are welcomed here, but they're not necessarily needed. I want the Phoenix Suns, whether it's Grayson Allen, whether it's Yusuf Nurkic, to target a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith, that if he was on this team, a 6'8", 6'9" guy that can do everything we want Ryan Dunn to do, but maybe it's too early for him to do so. If they get a guy like a Dorian Finney-Smith on a contract where a lot of people would sign Grayson Allen to what he has now, a guy that shoots 48% and plays fine defense, everyone needs shooting. Dorian Finney-Smith fits this team, and it's not just him, an athletic wing that can help defensively and knock down a three, a poor man's Mikal Bridges, if you will. That is my number one thing that maybe I should have said in the beginning, but I was really trying to tailor this take till the end of the show so that less people might hear it. But that is where I want it to go, a athletic wing of a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith. If the Suns are well enough at the All-Star break, they might be able to get a guy like that at a slight discount.
Suns fans do like Grayson Allen, but I'm surprised you think that that's going to be an
Are you kidding me?
take.
Are you kidding me? Suns fans think Grayson Allen is the savior to this team because he shot 50% from three last year, nearly. He doesn't fit this team.
I got into it with plenty of fans about his defense in particular. I think that people,
he's fine.
Frankly, they say a white dude and they think he's good at defense. I'll just say
but he's fine. He's nothing special.
He's fine.
He's small.
Totally good enough for his role, ideally, which now is his role will be closer to what it should be, more of a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th man versus what he was sometimes the second guy on this team last year. He tries
really hard, and that goes a long way.
But I think as much as people may like Grayson, I think more Suns fans realize the need for a player like Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think that a trade, if it was for a player who fits that bill and is as good and proven as Finney-Smith, not a wild card prayer like, last year with somebody like Nasir Little, for instance, I think people would get behind that. And I think if at least listeners to this show, I think I've been able to get them on board with the fact that that type of winger forward is still the missing piece for this team. I mean, imagine you and I, a lot of the things we have argued about, whether it's what role does Beal fill, how big of a opportunity might Tyus Jones have, or, even like Bol, the flexibility that he provides you, and whether that's just a pie in the sky idea, but knowing that they need somebody who can make them a little more flexible, a lot of that stuff just, the boxes get checked if you have a player like Finney-Smith or anyone close to him. So I think this is spot on. I hope Suns fans are smart enough to realize this would help the team.
I don't blame Suns fans for this, but in Arizona, we tend to have low sports self-esteems because we have no championship since 2001, and I will raise my hand as being that person that feels that way too. The Cardinals lost today, and I'm already trumping a moral victory out there. There's no moral victories out in the East Coast. I think they see a guy like Grayson Allen and try to make it cope better for them not getting as much as they wanted to for a guy like DeAndre Ayton. He played really well last year. He tries really hard. His defense was, just say what it was probably going to get bullied in the postseason had he not gotten injured. And that's a guy that I feel like Suns fans gravitate to because he does have a polarizing personality. So with Grayson, I do believe I'm going to get some real pushback because they're going to point at his 48% from three last year. And I'm going to say, sure, that's not what the Suns need. They've got enough offense. They need a guy that can be a 3-and-D guy and find someone who is a poor man's Mikal Bridges because those guys are expensive.
Yeah, I mean, look at the 2021 team, right? You do need shooting, of course. Do you need shooting to the level that Grayson provides it at the salary he makes when you could spread the wealth among a different skill set that is more in need for this team, especially in a world where, like we were talking in the last segment, you ideally get a little bit more of a balanced style from the big three. We know Beal, Booker, and Durant, frankly, all of them could use a little bit more of that behind the arc game in their mix. So that makes Grayson fit even worse, frankly, to me, if that happens. So,
which is why I've been so
think
high.
Giving a guy that can play some defense and has a little more size that same money, I think makes all the sense in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to step over you, but Ryan Dunn is really quickly why you and I have talked so highly about him. And
that's a guy. That's my other dream. If we can just jump to Ryan Dunn, that's
jump to Ryan Dunn.
Ryan Dunn hitting is something, and this one is a little more personal because I agree with you that a trade is the more sensible, likely way that they get that influx of defense and athleticism onto the team, because it's more likely that you can make a trade for a guy like Finney-Smith and that works out than the very small percent chance that a late first round pick hits in year one. That is just statistically unlikely in the history of the league. I found one example that I will give you in a moment of who that could even be, but wouldn't it just be so much fun if we got to watch Ryan Dunn do what he did at Virginia, even if it's a rookie 19, 20, 21-year-old version of that? That would just make the season more enjoyable every night to watch. So I just want the freak athlete to be awesome. It's that simple. I want to watch it.
I have a soft spot for Ryan Dunn because everyone knows about, at this point, my affinity for a guy like Shawn Marion. And I saw you mention to someone in the comment section of a previous show. It just, that's what I want him to be. I just want him to be a high flyer. I want him to be the guy that can play defense. And if Ryan Dunn does work out, you're absolutely not trading Grayson Allen, because now you have 7 guys in a real rotation, and absolutely is one of the best rotations with those 7 guys, if you include Ryan Dunn in that, in the NBA. And then everything changes. And then, like, kind of just we had mentioned before, that 21 season was so fun. And it felt like, because those guys were ours. I would love to get a guy like Ryan Dunn to feel like ours, because the only player on this team that feels like our guy is Devin Booker. And that does kind of suck.
That's a great point. That would make it all the more special.
It would make so much fun.
The fundamental question with Dunn is going to be, and I think I said this when we talked about him on a previous episode, can you put enough offensive lineups together? Basically, we have to think of Ryan Dunn as a center on the offensive end, in terms of he is not going to be spacing the floor. He is going to be an around the basket player first and foremost. He's not going to be a ball handler. Think of him like a center. He's not going to be guarding centers, but on offense, that's going to basically be his role. So what does it look like to build a real lineup around him that can actually score if that's going to be the case? Do you have Yusuf Nurkic shooting threes? Do you have small ball a lot where Dunn can basically be the only non-shooter on the court? I don't know exactly what that looks like. There's some options that the Suns could work with there. I will just say the Suns clearly have some confidence in making a player like that work, and you only have to go back a year to realize that. They drafted Toumani Camara, who is strikingly similar to Ryan Dunn. And I think we kind of forget that because he never played a minute in a real Suns uniform outside of Las Vegas. But they seemed to believe they could get Camara into the mix also without a jumper. Now, his was a little further along even than Dunn's is. but that kind of makes me feel better about it in a maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid kind of way here, Ben, because they've done it 2 years in a row, drafting very similar guys and obviously feeling like that would work for them. And now we finally get to see if they're right.
Yeah, really quickly. The Suns could have used a Toumani Camara last year, and they really could have used a Toumani Camara this year. But that's all I'll say to that. And that feels like just a real crappy throwaway in that trade. And now you understand why James Jones, it took everything for him to let go of that guy.
The one good thing Portland got in the Damian Lillard trade that actually gets a positive reaction from people outside of getting smoked in all the other aspects of it and handing the Boston Celtics a title in the process. All right, that'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back on Wednesday. Final week of 3 days a week. We're going to daily starting next Monday, so you'll want to be right here for all of that. Enjoy your Monday. We'll talk to you Wednesday.